The first time the Alpha King scented me, I was on my knees in the rushes, scrubbing old blood from the stones beneath his throne. Ash streaked my arms to choke my scent, sage burned the back of my throat, and still my wolf prowled, pressing against my skin as if she sensed the hunter above us. Bernard of the Iron Crown listened to my uncle's quavering report about raiders, broad shoulders wrapped in black leather, every line of him coiled like a drawn bow. They said he could smell fear from across a battlefield. I prayed he would not smell me. Head bowed, hair veiling my face. I moved my brush in careful circles. Servant, invisible, safe. I had built my life on those 3 words. Hide your scent, hold your tongue. Never, ever, catch an alpha's eye. Then a cold draft slipped through the arrow slits, tugged at my plain gray gown, and carried the smallest breath of omega heat into the air. Silence fell. Leather creaked. A chair scraped stone. Something unseen hooked low in my belly and pulled, sharp and sure as a collar snapping around my throat. I did not have to look up to know. I had tried to hide my scent all my life. The Alpha King was already watching. The night they feasted Bernard of the Iron Crown, the great hall smelled of smoke, roasted boar, and my own fear. I slipped between benches with a flagon cradled to my chest, head lowered so no one would see how tight my mouth had become. My uncle had ordered extra braziers lit, filled them to the brim with sage, rosemary, and the bitter blackroot I had begged from the healer. The smoke curled around the rafters, heavy and sharp, stinging my eyes and throat. It should have buried my scent beneath layers of spice and ash. Should have. The hall thrummed with voices. Warriors in worn leather shouted over sloshing cups. Merchants laughed too loudly at my uncle's jokes. And at the far end, on the high seat beneath our tattered banner, sat the reason my heart would not calm. Bernard. I did not look directly at him. I saw enough in glances stolen from the corner of my eye. The fall of dark hair, the breadth of his shoulders, the way his arm lay along the carved wolf heads of the chair, as if claiming the entire keep. He wore no crown, only a simple band of iron at his brow. But every wolf in the hall leaned unconsciously toward him, as if gravity itself bent around his presence. An Alpha King, a warlord, a man whose name mothers whispered to frighten pups into obedience. Helena. My cousin Tomas hissed my name as I passed. Mind your hands. Spill so much as a drop on the king and Uncle Garin will flay you. I have no wish to draw his eye, I murmured, keeping my gaze on the rushes. You are safe, he snorted. Safe? With that scent of yours? His voice dropped to a spiteful whisper. No herb will hide it forever. A flush burned up my throat. The herbs are strong tonight, I said. More to myself than to him. He will not notice. Tomas was already turned away, jostling for a better place near the musicians where the king might see him, might remember his name. Most people in this keep would have killed for Bernard's attention. I had clawed my life around avoiding it. Near the dais, the air changed. The hall was still loud, but the noise rang strangely distant, muffled as if underwater. I could feel him there. A heavy pressure at the edge of my awareness, like standing too close to a thunderhead and waiting for lightning to strike. Servant, I reminded myself. Invisible, safe. I poured wine for a line of border lords, murmured the proper courtesies, kept moving. My hands did not shake. My breaths came slow and measured the way the healer had taught me. In, out, cage the wolf, smother the heat, sage and blackroot, ash and smoke. Across the table, my uncle's voice rose, overeager. Of course, your majesty. Our poor house cannot match the splendor of the high packs. But my niece, Lady Maris, is comely enough, and well-bred. Her dowry is small, but her loyalty would be loyalty. He meant obedience. Maris would smile and bow and open her throat for a stranger if Garin commanded it. For one wild, selfish heartbeat, I felt relief wash over me, cold and sharp. He is offering Maris, not me. I despised myself for the thought, but I clung to it all the same. Your niece, Lady Maris. Bernard's voice slid through the noise, low and rough as gravel. The one you keep displayed at your right hand each feast, drenched in rose oil? My uncle chuckled weakly. Just so, my king. A gentle girl. Fertile stock. Stock. As if my cousin were nothing but a broodmare. Maris giggled on cue, the sound bright and brittle. I sidled closer to refill a lord's cup, straining to hear. She smells of roses, Bernard said. And fear. A ripple of uneasy laughter shivered around the table. I prefer honesty. The king's chair creaked as he leaned back. And I did not ride all this way for roses. My stomach dropped. The flagon grew slick in my palms. I forced myself to move, to step away. To lose myself once more among faceless servants. Girl, someone snapped. I froze. A calloused hand closed around my wrist, not cruel but impossibly strong, halting me so abruptly the wine inside the flagon sloshed. "Bring the king fresh wine," the lord at my side commanded. "His cup has been empty too long." My throat went dry. "Yes, my lord." I could have begged another servant to take my place. I could have feigned a spill, a fainting spell, anything. Instead, I walked the length of the table toward the high seat, each step sinking like a stone lodged deeper in a riverbed. Bernard watched my approach. I felt it before I dared raise my eyes. A weight on my skin, the drag of a gaze that stripped more than the plain gray gown from my body. The closer I drew, the less the herbs seemed to matter. My wolf pressed forward, claws scraping at my ribs, snarling in mingled panic and something far more dangerous. Want. I stopped at the king's right hand and bowed low, the flagon cradled before me. The smoke from the nearest brazier curled between us, thick with sage, rosemary, blackroot. My eyes watered. "Your wine, my king," I said, proud that my voice did not shake. His hand rested on the table, fingers long and scarred, a wolf's head ring glinting dully on one knuckle. He did not reach for the cup. "What did you burn?" he asked. My head snapped up before I could stop it. His face was harsher up close, the lines at the corners of his eyes carved deep by years of war and command. Those eyes were a storm gray, clear, and unblinking. "I what, sire?" "In the braziers." His gaze never left mine. "Sage, rosemary, blackroot, and ash on your arms, on your throat." His nostrils flared once, slow. "You have used them often." A murmur passed down the table. Heat surged into my cheeks. "They keep the hall from stinking of sweat, my king." He huffed a humorless breath. "They keep you from stinking of yourself." The words struck like a slap. My uncle sputtered, half rising from his chair. "Majesty, forgive the girl's clumsiness. She is only a servant." "Is she?" Bernard tilted his head, studying me. "Turn your eyes down, Omega." The word cracked through me. I obeyed because my knees threatened to give way. "Omega." He had not guessed. He knew. He had been testing the air since he came through our gate. "Your herbs are clever," he continued, voice quieter now, pitched for me alone. "They blurred the trail on the road, nearly fooled me in the yard. But there is always a moment when the wind shifts." My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my ears. "My king," I meant no. "Pour." My fingers obeyed even as the rest of me wanted to bolt. I tipped the flagon, wine glugging into his cup. For one heartbeat, it felt as if the entire hall held its breath, watching the dark stream rise. His hand moved, not to take the cup, but to steady it, his fingers brushing over mine. The world vanished. Heat slammed into me, raw and wild, burning through skin and bone. My lungs forgot how to draw air. Every sense tunneled down to the point of contact where his calloused fingertips rested against my knuckles. A scent burst between us, my scent, stripped of herbs and ash, bright and lush and undeniable, and wrapped around his wolf like a ribbon around a blade. "Mine," something inside him snarled, echoing inside my skull. My knees buckled. The flagon slipped from my grasp. Bernard caught it with his other hand without looking, never breaking the fragile, shocking contact. The hall erupted. Chairs scraped, voices rose, someone cursed. I heard my uncle choke on a word that might have been, no. None of it mattered. All I could feel was the bond roaring awake between us, a silver chain snapping from my chest to his, pulling tight. Terror surged up, hot as the desire tangled beneath it. I tried to jerk my hand back. Bernard's grip tightened not painfully, but with unyielding command. His eyes had gone wolf-bright, flecks of molten gold sparking in the gray. For a heartbeat, a flicker of something like wonder crossed his scarred face. "There you are," he murmured. My breath came in ragged gasps. "Please," I whispered, not even certain what I begged for. "Let me go." Instead, he rose from the high seat, still holding my hand. The room fell into stunned silence. "Garin," he said without looking at my uncle. "You offered me a cousin drenched in roses." My uncle made a strangled sound. Bernard lifted our joined hands, the king and the servant, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "You neglected to mention the Omega you tried to bury in ash." The hall erupted the moment Bernard named what I was. Voices crashed like waves against stone. Some cursed, some laughed. Some only stared as if they had witnessed an omen instead of a servant girl with shaking knees. My Uncle Garin shoved back his chair so hard it toppled. The sound cut through the uproar. "Majesty," he cried, stumbling toward the dais. "There has been a mistake." Bernard did not release my hand. His thumb rested against my pulse, steady as a shackle. What mistake, Lord Garin? He asked, voice calm as winter. She is nothing, my uncle said. A kitchen brat, low-born, barely trained. Her mother was. He bit the word off, but the damage was done. Shame burned the back of my throat. You cannot mean to claim her. Not when I have proper kin to offer. The king's gaze slid to him at last, cold and flat. I do not select horses at market, to be measured by bloodlines and teeth, he said. This is no matter for barter. Garin swallowed. Sweat glistened at his temples. But an omega of such questionable origin, how could she stand at your side? The high packs will be insulted. Let me send to our cousins. There are girls of better breeding. Bernard's grip tightened on my hand, the only warning before his power rolled through the hall, heavy as fog. The very air seemed to hush. Lord Garin, his voice lost all warmth. Are you challenging my right to my own mate? The word hooked in my chest again. Mate. I felt it humming along the bond, a note only we could hear. Garin paled. I would not dare. Then hear this and remember. Bernard stepped down from the dais, dragging me with him until we stood level with my uncle. By the law of the first oaths, a king may not be denied the one the moon has marked for him. Not by council, not by priest, and certainly not by a minor border lord clinging to his crumbling walls. A murmur rippled outward as the watching wolves absorbed the invocation. Ancient right, irrefutable. Garin swallowed again, throat bobbing. Of course, your majesty. I only concern myself for her sake. She is unworthy of such an honor. Honor. The word tasted like ashes. My heart hammered so hard I wondered they could not all hear it. Bernard regarded him for a long, dangerous moment. On that at least we agree, he said. A sharp pain stabbed through me. I flinched before he finished. She is not worthy yet, he continued, voice softening in a way that did not comfort me at all. But she will be. I will see to it. The hall spun faintly. I had the sudden, absurd urge to tear my hand from his and bolt back to the kitchens, back to the familiar safety of smoke and scrubbed stones. Instead, I stood rooted while Bernard turned to the men clustered near the door. Commander Hedrick, he called, prepare my company to ride at dawn. We return to the capital with first light. Yes, my king. The commander's fist thumped his chest. And send women you trust to help my mate pack what she needs. Bernard finally looked down at me again, wolf-bright eyes stripped of pretense. If she attempts to flee, you have my leave to drag her by the scruff. Laughter broke the tension, uneasy and short-lived. I wanted to snarl. Instead, I bowed my head, the model of obedient silence, while inside my wolf howled against invisible bars. Hours, they gave me. A handful of hours to unravel an entire life. The hall emptied by degrees. Lords retired to their chambers, drunk on wine and gossip. Servants cleared trenchers and overturned cups. My uncle vanished without meeting my eyes. No one spoke to me as I slipped away. In the narrow passage behind the kitchens, the walls seemed to close in. This corridor had been my refuge since childhood, its soot-dark stones familiar as the lines on my own palms. I traced them now, fingertips memorizing every crack as if I could carve them into bone and carry them away. In my cell of a room, I stared at the pallet stuffed with straw, the rickety chest that held all I owned, 2 spare shifts, a mended cloak, a knife with a chipped handle, a bundle of herbs tied in waxed cloth. It did not take long to pack a life so small. The women Bernard sent found me stuffing the last shift into my satchel. One was the healer, Mira, her sharp eyes softer than usual. The other, an older servant whose name I did not know, kept her gaze on the floor. You should take wool, Mira said briskly. The high roads are colder than this forgotten corner. And more herbs, but not that blackroot filth. You will not need it where you are going. My jaw clenched. I will take what I please. She clicked her tongue but did not argue. You think you hate the bond now, she said. Wait until he is days away and you can still feel him breathe. Poison won't save you from that. I turned away so she would not see the fear flicker across my face. When dawn finally bled into the sky, I stood in the courtyard with my satchel over one shoulder, cloak pulled tight against the chill. Bernard's horses stamped and snorted, clouds of breath rising white in the cold air. His guard moved like a single creature, efficient and silent as they checked saddles and packs. My uncle waited on the steps, face drawn. He had not sought me out all night. Now he descended, stopping an arm's length away. You will obey him, he said without preamble. You will not shame this house. I let out a brittle laugh. You were ashamed of me before the king ever scented me. His mouth thinned. Do not mistake this elevation for worth, girl. You are a tool the moon placed in his hands. Nothing more. If you displease him, do not dream of coming back here. This keep cannot afford his anger. So that was it then. No farewell, no apology for the years of ash and silence he had pressed upon me. Only a warning to stay useful or die elsewhere. I understand, I said. He nodded, as if we had settled the matter of a broken cartwheel, and stepped back. Bernard approached a moment later, leading a massive black stallion. His presence rolled over the courtyard, snapping spines straight, dragging eyes toward him. For now, you ride with me, he said. My stomach lurched. I can take another horse. Yes, he said simply. Mine. He offered his hand. I hesitated. The memory of the bond's first flare still burned fresh, terror and molten heat twined together. When I did not move, his jaw tightened the slightest fraction. Do you prefer I throw you over the saddle like a sack? He asked quietly. I will, if I must. But I would rather you climbed of your own will. Bitterness stung my tongue. What part of this is my will, exactly? His eyes met mine, cool and serious. The parts that come after this morning. It was not the answer I wanted. It was the only one he had. I set my hand in his. The bond responded instantly, a hum beneath my skin. When he lifted me into the saddle and swung up behind, settling me between his body and the high pommel, the sensation intensified. Heat coiled low in my belly, sharp and frightening. I braced my hands on the leather, careful not to touch him more than necessary. Breathe, he murmured near my ear. Fighting it only makes it worse. I am not some mare in season, I hissed. A faint huff of amusement warmed my neck. No, he said. You are far more dangerous. The gates creaked open. The keep receded behind us. Stone and smoke and the only life I had ever known shrinking to a smudge against the gray hills. Each hoofbeat carried me farther from the girl who scrubbed floors and smothered her scent, closer to something vast and unknown. Waves of sensation broke over me with every shift of Bernard's body, every inhale of his scent. Iron, pine, storm. My own fragrance surged in response, no longer muted by ash, curling around us like an invisible cloak. I clenched my jaw against the traitorous shiver that ran through me. I would not be ruled by this bond. While the road unwound before us, I made a silent vow. Somewhere in the breadth of Bernard's kingdom, there had to be an answer. A potion strong enough to numb the bond, an old crone with forbidden knowledge, a ritual whispered in the dark. If I had to cut out the part of my soul that howled for him, I would. Better a wolf dulled to a shadow than a queen on a chain. The royal fortress rose from the rock like a beast of stone and iron, all fanged battlements and watchful towers, its torches burning even in daylight. By the time we passed beneath the raised portcullis, my legs had gone numb from hours in the saddle, and my mind from the constant pressure of Bernard's presence at my back. The moment the horse's hooves struck the inner cobbles, sound crashed over us, shouted orders, clanging steel, the bark of hounds. The air here smelled different from the border keep, less of damp and rot, more of oiled leather, smoke, and too many wolves packed into one place. A courtyard full of eyes turned toward us. They bowed, those wolves, warriors dropping to one knee, guards dipping their heads, servants bending their backs. Yet as Bernard dismounted and reached up to lift me down, I felt their stares like claws. Who is she? How dare she? What did she do to him? Questions hung thicker than the smoke. Bernard's hands closed around my waist and lowered me to the ground. The bond flared with the contact, heat rushing to my cheeks. I jerked away as soon as my boots touched stone, refusing to lean into the fleeting sense of rightness. Helena, his voice was low, for me alone. You do not bow to anyone here but me. Remember that. I did not know how to answer, so I said nothing. A woman in dark blue stepped forward, all sharp angles and colder eyes. Your Majesty. She bowed with flawless grace. Welcome home, Lady Alara. Bernard's tone cooled. Is my steward inside? Waiting in the great hall. Her gaze flicked to me, assessing. And this must be the complication I have heard so much about. I bristled. My name is Helena. Is it? She smiled without showing teeth. How fortunate for us all. Bernard's jaw tightened. Alara will show you to your chambers, he told me. Garen the healer will meet you there. Obey him in all matters regarding your health. I have managed my own health until now, I said before I could stop myself. He gave me a look that said I had just confirmed his worst suspicions. You have survived in spite of what you did to yourself, he corrected. There is a difference. To Alara, he added. She is not to be left alone without at least one guard present. If anyone attempts to approach her without my leave, I want to hear of it before the blood dries. Alara inclined her head. Of course, my king. He left without another word, striding toward the inner doors, cloak snapping behind him. The crowd parted around him like water around a ship's hull, bowing, watching. I stood alone in the space he left, suddenly aware of every threadbare stitch in my cloak. "Come, little wolf," Alara said. "Let us see what damage the border has done to you." The chambers she led me to were larger than the entire cluster of rooms the servants shared at the keep. Tapestries muffled sound on the walls, thick furs softened the floor, and a bed big enough to swallow me whole stood near a hearth already blazing. Someone had placed a bowl of early white flowers on the table. Their scent tugged at my nose, delicate and sweet. I wanted to hate it all. Instead, I felt horribly, traitorously small. "Strip," Alara said briskly. I spun. "Pardon?" "For the bath." She gestured to a copper tub where steam curled in lazy ribbons. "The healer will be here soon. He prefers his patients not reek of horse and road dust." Heat crawled up my neck. "You could have said so more gently. If you are to survive here, you must grow used to people saying many things less gently than they should." She crossed to a carved chest, opened it, and drew out a folded gown of soft gray wool. "This is yours. His Majesty instructed that your clothing be simple until you learn which silks will not cause riots." "I do not want silks." Her brows rose. "You think what you want matters, and yet you insist you are not naive." The door opened before I could retort. An older man stepped in, thin as a reed but moving with a confidence that filled the room. He wore the green and gold sash of a court healer. "Majesty's new disaster, I presume," he said. "I am Garen. You will sit when I say sit, and drink when I say drink. In return, I will do my best to keep you alive and sane. Do we understand each other?" "I am neither fragile nor mad," I said. "So all mad people claim." His gaze sharpened. "You have been using blackroot and ash to choke your scent?" "Yes." "For how many years?" "Since my first heat," he hissed softly, almost a whistle. "Then it is a wonder your wolf did not abandon you altogether." He set a leather bag on the table, began unpacking vials, and wrapped bundles that released the sharp tang of dried herbs. "We wean you off that filth slowly. Too fast and you will drown in your own chemistry. Too slow and—" He shrugged. "You are bound to a king, girl. His enemies will not wait while we fiddle with your dosing." A knot tightened in my chest. "I never asked to be bound to anyone." Garen shot me a look not unkind. "No one asks the moon who to love. Some of us are only more tightly chained to her whims." He jerked his chin at the tub. "In. Alara, help her. And make certain she uses the soap, not her pride." The bath stung where road grit had rubbed my skin raw, but for the first time in days, heat came without shame. As Alara poured water over my hair, I risked a question. "Why do they look at me so?" I asked. "The courtiers, the Omegas in the corridor, as if I had stolen their bread, because you have." She wrung out my hair with efficient hands. "Every unmated Omega in this fortress has been raised on tales of the king's return, on dreams of catching his eye. They trained their scents and smiles for years. Then you tumble in from the border, smelling of ash and fate, and take what they wanted without trying." "I did not take anything," I said. "It was forced upon me. Envy rarely cares about details." When they finally allowed me out of the tub and into the gray gown, Garen approached with a cup of cloudy liquid. I sniffed it and recoiled. "That reeks worse than blackroot, and yet it will not rot your insides or cloud your mind," he said. "It will soothe the edges of your heat without smothering it. Drink." I hesitated. The bond pulsed between Bernard and me, a steady drum at the back of my thoughts. Already the nearness of his presence within the fortress made my skin prickle. "If I drink this, will I want him less?" I whispered. Garen considered me. "You may think of him less," he said. "Wanting is another matter. Choice will come from here." He tapped his chest, not unkind. "Not from a cup." I drank anyway. Days blurred into a pattern that felt like a trap disguised as routine. In the mornings, Alara drilled me in court etiquette. How deep to bow to a duke versus a visiting alpha. How to smile with my lips while keeping my teeth politely hidden. Where to stand at Bernard's side so that I was visible, but never in the way. In the afternoons, Garen taught me to breathe through the surges of heat instead of clenching against them, to recognize the sense of my own moods and rein them in. "You are a tinderbox," he said once, frowning as he sniffed the air around me. "Fear, anger, desire, all of it rides your scent too plainly. Learn to bank your fire, or someone will use it to burn you." At night, Bernard summoned me, never by messenger. He simply tugged at the bond, a silent pull I could not ignore, and I found my feet carrying me through torchlit corridors to his private hall. I told myself I went, only because I had no choice. My treacherous wolf knew better. He did not bed me. Not yet. Instead, we sat before the hearth, the king and the unwilling mate, a span of rug between us like a treaty line. He asked questions about the border, my childhood, the first time I had realized I was different. I answered because silence felt heavier than words. In turn, he spoke of the wars that had carved his scars, of the nights when he woke with blood beneath his claws and could not remember whether it had been dream or memory. In the firelight, the brutal lines of his face eased. I saw the man who carried a kingdom on his back, not merely the predator who had dragged me here. Hatred began to fray at the edges, threads worn thin by unwelcome understanding. One evening, as a servant poured wine into Bernard's cup, a strange scent pricked my nose, bitter, metallic, wrong. It vanished beneath richer aromas almost at once, but my wolf snapped to attention. I frowned. "What is in that?" "Red from the southern vines," the servant said, bowing out. Bernard took the cup, swirling it absently. "A gift from Lord Halvar. He is eager to impress." The odd tang teased at me again. My pulse quickened. Garen's lessons whispered in my mind. "Trust your nose. It has kept wolves alive longer than steel." "Do you drink from that cask often?" I asked. Bernard quirked a brow. "Why?" "Because it smells numb." He stilled. "Numb, like when the healer rubbed salve on my arm before stitching it," I said slowly. The way the skin went quiet. "There is something in it that should not be there." He studied me for a long moment, then set the cup aside untouched. "Halvar has been sending his best wines for months," he said. "Garen claims my wolf has been sluggish." I blamed age and politics. His eyes narrowed. Perhaps I was wrong. Fear slid cold down my spine. If someone had been dulling the king's instincts, it meant only one thing. The fortress was not merely a den. It was a trap, and we were already inside. The rumors began as a tickle at the edge of every conversation, a draft under a door I could not close. At first, I caught only fragments as I moved through the fortress. A courtier leaning too close to another, a pair of Omega girls falling abruptly silent when I entered the solar, a noblewoman's fan snapping shut over a half-finished sentence. Bewitched, that is what I heard. No ordinary scent, not natural, not safe. When I asked Alara, she only arched a brow. "You wish to be invisible," she said. "Now you are the brightest fire in a room full of cold hands. Did you think no one would try to warm themselves? Or burn me?" I muttered. She did not disagree. The name behind the whispers came soon enough. Duke Corvin of Blackmere, Bernard's cousin on his mother's side. He arrived with a retinue of pale-cloaked wolves and a smile that never reached his eyes. In the great hall, he clasped Bernard's forearm as brothers might, but his gaze flicked to me with a chill curiosity that made my wolf bare her teeth. "So this is the miracle from the border," he said. "I confess, cousin, I doubted the tales. An Omega whose scent can drag a king from his warhorse? It sounds like the kind of story bards invent to make lonely girls sigh." Bernard's hand settled low on my back, a subtle claim. "You will find Helena is no bard's fancy," he replied. "She bleeds and bites like the rest of us." "Does she?" Corvin's smile widened a fraction. "And what does she do to your judgment?" The hall went still around us. Bernard's fingers flexed against my spine. "Careful, Corvin." Of course," the Duke said lightly, lifting his hands. "I mean only that the court is delighted by this development. We are eager to see how she reshapes our king." Later, Alara reported that within hours of the Duke's arrival, servants were repeating his words with additions. She bewitched him with mountain sorcery. They say her scent twists thoughts like vines around a tower. She reeks so strong he cannot think straight. Each retelling sharpened me into something more monstrous. I told myself it did not matter what they thought. I had survived sharper tongues in my uncle's keep. But these wolves held knives as easily as gossip, and Corvin's gaze followed me whenever we shared a room, measuring, weighing. The night of the attack, the moon was a thin, cloud-smeared curve over the fortress. I could not sleep. The bond hummed with restless energy. Bernard was awake too, somewhere in the maze of stone, pacing his chambers or buried in maps. His unease bled into my own. I slipped from my bed and threw a cloak over my shift. Perhaps a walk in the gardens would cool my thoughts. The inner gardens were a miracle of stubborn green clinging to stone. Yew hedges clipped into wolf shapes, pale flowers glowing like ghosts, a fountain murmuring quietly at the center. Torches cast pools of honeyed light along the gravel paths, but shadows pooled thick between them. I breathed in the damp earth, the crushed grass scent of my own footsteps, the faint trace of Bernard's presence lingering from some earlier visit. For a moment, I almost forgot the court's sharp eyes, the Duke's too smooth smile. Branches rustled behind me. I turned, heart hitching. Who's there? No answer. Only the soft scrape of boot on gravel. My wolf brought her hackles up. I pivoted to leave, telling myself not to be foolish, to find a guard, to go back inside. A hand clamped over my mouth and dragged me sideways into the shadow of a hedge. I slammed into cold stone. The impact stole my breath. A hard body pressed against mine, pinning my wrists above my head with one hand. The other stayed over my mouth, fingers calloused, grip bruising. "Do not scream," a voice hissed against my ear. Male, muffled, distorted by a cloth mask. "If you value your king, little Omega, you will be very quiet." My heart pounded so hard it hurt. My scent spiked, hot and sharp with terror. I felt it bloom between us. Felt his wolf react. He shuddered. "Moon's mercy," he whispered. "No wonder he is lost." I bit his palm. Copper flooded my tongue. He snarled and slammed my head back against the wall hard enough to make sparks burst behind my eyes. "Stupid," he spat. "You will not break the bond that way." He bared his teeth, mask tugging with the movement, and lowered his mouth toward my throat. Realization struck like ice water. He meant to mark me, not as a mate that magic was already sealed, but as another's claim layered over Bernard's. A false bite, a taint. At best, it would sow doubt. At worst, it might twist the bond into madness. I thrashed, kicking at his shins, but he pressed his hips in, trapping my legs. I could feel his breath at my neck now, hear him murmur words I could barely catch. Witch's poison, unnatural scent, must be broken. I dragged at the bond, panic surging. "Bernard!" I thought wildly, though we shared no words that way. Only feeling. Fear, sharp as a blade. Help. His teeth grazed my skin. Another scent crashed over us, cutting through everything. Iron, storm, the particular wild tang that meant Bernard when he let his wolf rise. "Step away from her," the king snarled. The pressure vanished. My attacker jerked back just as a dark shape slammed into him. They hit the gravel in a tangle of limbs and cloth. Bernard's hand closed around the masked wolf's throat. Claws half slid from his fingers. His eyes glowed with a light that was not entirely human. "How did you get past my guard?" he demanded. The assailant clawed at Bernard's grip, eyes bulging. For the realm," he rasped. "She will ruin." Bernard's claws broke skin. Blood scented the air, hot and metallic. My stomach lurched. "Who sent you?" he said. "Say the name, and I may let you live long enough to regret it." The man's gaze flicked to me, wild and oddly triumphant. "You will see," he whispered, "when she burns you from the inside." His eyes rolled back. His body convulsed once, then went limp. Bernard swore, a vicious word I had heard only soldiers use, and tore the mask away. The man's mouth frothed faintly, a bitter almond scent curling from his lips. "Poison," Bernard said grimly, "in a tooth capsule, loyal to the end." Hands shaking, I slid down the wall until I was crouched in the gravel, cloak pooling around me. "He tried to bite me," I said. The words felt thick. "To mark me," he said. He said it would break the bond. Bernard's head snapped toward me. In 2 strides he was at my side, crouching, his hands hovering near my shoulders, not quite touching. "Did he?" His voice was rough. "Did he break skin?" I shook my head. "No. You came before. Some of the tension bled from his frame." He sank back on his heels, dragged a hand through his hair. "I felt you," he said quietly. "Fear through the bond, like a knife in my ribs." I was in council with Corvin, listening to him prattle about harvest tithes, and suddenly I knew you were afraid and alone. His mouth twisted. He did not like that I left the table. Corvin. The name tasted sour. "You think this was him?" "I think he benefits most if the court believes you dangerous," Bernard said. "If I begin to doubt you, if others think slitting your throat is an act of patriotism." He looked at the body, jaw clenched. An assassin willing to die before naming his master. That level of loyalty is rare among hired blades. The garden felt suddenly colder. "So whoever wants me dead," I said slowly, "is close enough to command that loyalty, and close enough to my heart that their betrayal would cut deep." His eyes met mine. In that moment he looked less like a king and more like a man standing on a crumbling ledge. If they cannot kill me outright, they will strike at what they think is my weakness. Me. You, he agreed. And the bond between us. They hope to twist it, poison it, use it to drag me where they want. He exhaled, long and harsh. I will triple your guards. You will not walk the gardens alone again. A spark of anger cut through my lingering fear. So I am to live behind doors now? Shut away until they forget I exist? They will not forget, he said. That is precisely the problem. I pushed myself to my feet, gravel biting my bare soles. Then hiding makes it easier for them, I said. If I stay in shadows, they can lure me out to quiet places, and no one will question it. No one will see. He frowned. You would rather make yourself more of a target? I would rather stop acting like prey, I snapped. He went very still. The words tasted like ash and truth. For years I had smothered my scent, shrunk my steps, swallowed my voice. All it had done was teach predators I could be cornered. That man found me in the gardens because I slipped away alone, I said. Because I believed darkness would keep me safe. It did not. It hid him better than it hid me. Bernard's gaze tracked the line of my throat where teeth had almost met flesh. His wolf rode just beneath his skin, restless. What do you propose then? He asked. I swallowed, throat sore. If they mean to hunt me, let them do it in the open, I said. No more creeping through back passages, no more ash on my skin. I will stand at your side where every eye can see, and if they want to reach me, they must do it before the whole court. And your scent? He murmured. You would bear that as well? Fear flared, instinctive and deep. My wolf shivered in equal parts dread and fierce, wild relief. I have spent my life trying to hide it, I said. It did not stop them from coming. Slowly, Bernard's hand rose. He brushed his knuckles along my jaw, a touch as careful as if I were made of glass. They will speak more loudly, he warned. Call you witch, temptress, curse. They will claim I am blind because of you. They already do. My voice steadied. Let them choke on the truth instead of their own stories. Something in his expression softened, then hardened again into resolve. He turned to the fallen assassin. Very well, little wolf, he said. Let them see exactly what they fear. For the first time since the bond snapped between us, I understood a simple, brutal fact. If I stayed small, they would crush me in the dark. If they wanted my scent, my presence, my very existence as a weapon, then I would choose where the blade pointed. Bernard did not laugh when I asked him to teach me to hunt. He only studied me for a long, heavy moment, as if weighing the girl who once scrubbed blood from stone against the woman who had survived an assassin's teeth. You understand what you're asking, he said at last. Once you step onto that path, no one will ever see you as harmless again. They already do not, I answered. They only think I am helpless. I would rather be feared for what I can do than hunted for what I cannot. Something like pride flickered in his eyes. Very well, little wolf, he said, at dawn. Dawn in the training yard tasted of frost and iron. Bernard stood in the center, cloak discarded, sweat darkening the collar of his shirt despite the chill. A ring of soldiers watched from the shadows, pretending not to. Close your eyes, he ordered. I obeyed. What do you smell? Cold, I said. Wet stone, old blood. I drew a deeper breath. Leather, oil. The men watching us, 3 to the left, 2 to the right. And me? I did not need to breathe to answer that. Storm, I murmured. Pine, steel, tired anger. Heat coiled low in my belly, traitorous and warm. And something steadier than last week. He made a low approving sound. The numbness is fading, he said. Good. Again. He walked the yard, circling me, having men move, swap places, lift blades, or relax. I kept my eyes shut and followed the currents of scent and sound. Nervous sweat, amusement, boredom. When 3 of them shifted weight in the same direction, I felt the air sharpen. Circle forming, I said. Left flank tense. They expect you to lash out there. Bernard's hand closed briefly around my wrist. Even that light touch sent the bond thrumming. Open your eyes, he said. Tell me what you see. They had done exactly as I had scented. 3 soldiers clustering to my left, another 2 drifting to cut off retreat. I had walked those yards so often I could have guessed, but the knowledge humming beneath my skin felt different, more certain. You trusted your wolf, Bernard said. She led you true. I have spent years smothering her, I admitted. She has reason to sulk. Then we coax her out. A rare smile tugged at his mouth. Come, we run. We ran the walls, then the lower paths, then the steep goat track behind the fortress where the air grew thin and the rocks treacherous. At first I cursed him under my breath, lungs burning, legs shaking. He kept pace beside me, breathing only a little harder than at rest. "This is not hunting," I gasped. "This is torture. This is endurance," he corrected. "A hunt is worth nothing if you fall over winded after the first mile. You wish to stand in a circle of alphas and not flinch? Then you learn how to breathe through pain. Is that what you do?" I demanded. "Breathe through it until you forget it is there." He glanced at me, something old and bleak in his eyes. "Some pains never forget themselves," he said. "We only learn to run with them." Later, when sweat cooled on my skin and my muscles trembled with exhaustion, he brought me to the northern woods where snow clung stubbornly in shadowed hollows. There, he taught me to read more than scent. "Look at the ground," he said, crouching by a faint line of prints. "What passed here?" "A deer," I guessed. "Light on its feet. A she-wolf," he corrected, carrying a limp in her right forepaw. "See how the weight falls?" I squinted, the prints blurred in my tired eyes. "How do you know she limped?" "Because I saw her last night," he said dryly, "and I watched her favor that paw. Lesson 2. Do not rely only on one sense. Wolves who trust only their noses walk into pits." He showed me broken branches where a body had forced through, scat where a fox had marked its territory, the place where frost melted faster under a patch of earth warmed by recent sleeping bodies. "Everything speaks," he said. "Most men never learn to listen." In the evenings, I practiced my own weapon, my scent. Garen had given me exercises like penance. Sit, breathe, feel. I hated them at first. Sitting still made me itch. Breathing only reminded me how my body reacted whenever Bernard drew near. But slowly, patterns emerged. Fear sharpened my scent, gave it an edge that made alphas tense, shoulders rising unconsciously. Anger thickened it, heavier and muskier, pulling aggression from others like iron to a lodestone. Desire turned it honey-rich, intoxicating and dangerous. Calm, that was the hardest. Calm smoothed the edges, made my scent a steady hearth smoke instead of wildfire. One night, I sat cross-legged by the hearth in Bernard's private hall, while he read over a stack of petitions. The air hummed with the scratch of his pen, the crackle of logs, the steady drum of his heartbeat through the bond. "Again," he said, without looking up. "I am trying," I snapped, "and failing. You are practically shouting at me with every breath." Heat rushed to my face. "Perhaps do not sit so close then." He did not move an inch. "We do not choose where the enemy stands," he said. "Close your eyes, Helena. Feel what your body does when you look at me." "I am not looking at you," I protested. "You are always looking at me," he said quietly, "even with your eyes closed." The truth of it stung. I forced my lashes down, tried to name the tangle in my chest. Annoyance, wariness, curiosity, a pull that felt less like fear every day. I let each strand rise, acknowledged it, then exhaled. Slowly, the buzzing under my skin eased. The scent in the room shifted, smoothing from jagged to steady. "There," he murmured. "Better. Now hold it." "How do you know it changed?" I asked without opening my eyes. "Because my wolf stopped wanting to claw at the walls," he said, "and started wanting to lie down beside your chair." A laugh escaped me, startled and small. "I am trying to be a weapon, not a pillow." "You are both," he said simply. "A wise wolf knows when to be each." We discovered the bond's deeper tricks by accident. During a council, a messenger burst in babbling about raiders on the western road. Bernard's face went flat, his shoulders tightened as he listened. I sat at his right hand, outwardly composed, inwardly bored, and half lost in my own thoughts. Then, without warning, my heartbeat sped. Adrenaline rushed into my blood. I smelled dust, horses, the flicker of fear from men I had never met. My fingers dug into the arm of my chair. Bernard looked at me sharply. "What do you feel?" he asked. "Wind," I said, bewildered. "Leather. The road. As if I were riding. The men are afraid, but holding the line." I blinked at him. "You smell of it too, but you have not left this room." He sank back slowly. The other lords shifted uneasily. "Our scouts are returning," he said. "They will reach the gates in less than an hour. I have ridden that road often enough that my wolf runs with them when danger scents the air." His gaze on me grew intent. "Through the bond, you are running with us." The realization left me dizzy. "Can you use it?" I asked. "Can you draw from me as well?" He hesitated. "When you are calm," he said slowly. "My temper holds easier. When you are afraid, my hackles rise whether I wish them to or not." He gave me a wry look. "If you walk through courts seething with rage, do not be surprised if I snap at dukes." That seems dangerous. It is, he agreed. And yet, it is also strength. Two wolves, back to back, feeling each other's footing. Trust lurked in that space between us, fragile as spun glass. I learned to steady my breathing before he faced hostile counsels, to offer a well of quiet he could draw from. In turn, his confidence bled into me when I stood in rooms full of snapping smiles. Desire changed too. At first, it had been a wild thing, punching through me in sharp, humiliating waves whenever his hand brushed mine, whenever he loomed too close. I had blamed the bond, the forced nature of it, the way my body betrayed me. But as days layered into weeks, want began to come at quieter moments. Watching him spar at dawn, sweat shining on scarred skin, focus etched in every line of him. Listening to him speak gently to a stable boy who had broken a harness, patience where another king might have ordered lashes. The way his eyes softened when he thought no one saw and looked at me as if I were not a burden, but a question he wanted to keep asking. One night, as we stood on the battlements watching storm clouds gather, lightning flickering pale at the horizon, he rested his hands on the stone beside mine, close enough that our fingers almost touched. "You smell different," he said. "That seems to be all anyone ever notices about me," I said, but there was no real bite in it. "This is not fear," he went on, "nor anger." He inhaled, slow. Warmth, like bread from an oven, like... He broke off, jaw tightening. "I am trying to be polite. That would be a first," I murmured. He laughed under his breath. My heart thudded. I could have stepped away, retreated to the safety of my chambers and the walls I had spent years building. Instead, I let my hand drift until my little finger brushed his. The bond flared, not like a chain snapping tight, but like a door opening. I felt his surprise, his pulse spiking, the sudden heat that rushed through him. He could feel mine in return. There was no hiding, no pretending I did not want this. "This," I said softly, "is not the moon's fault." "No," he agreed, voice rough. "This is ours." When he turned his hand to lace our fingers together, it was not the claiming grip he had used in the hall that first night. It was a question. This time, I squeezed back. "Answer." The moon rode full and white above the fortress like an unblinking eye when the conclave began. Torches ringed the great hall, their flames licking shadows up the stone walls. The air throbbed with scent. So many wolves in one place, alphas crackling with dominance, betas taut as bowstrings, omegas perfumed in anxious sweetness. Every high lord of the realm had gathered to renew oaths to Bernard and to weigh, with hungry eyes, the woman at his side. Me. My gown was dark steel instead of soft gray tonight, cut close enough that I felt every breath. Alara had woven my hair back from my face in braids that bared my throat. No ash smudged my skin, no herbs dulled my scent. I walked into the hall bare as I had never been, my fragrance unfurling warm bread and storm-wet earth. The king called it, beneath the sharper smells of wine and ambition. Bernard's arm brushed mine as we took our place at the center of the circle etched into the flagstones. His wolf pressed close through the bond, solid as a wall at my back. "Ready," he murmured. "No," I said, "but I am here." It earned me the ghost of a smile. Heralds called names, lords stepped forward one by one to kneel, clasp wrists, speak the old words that bound their packs to the crown. I watched their faces, their scents, the way some spoke Bernard's name like a promise, and others like a curse. When Corvin's turn came, the hall tightened. He cut a fine figure in black and silver, cloak sweeping behind him, dark hair gleaming. He knelt with elaborate grace, took Bernard's forearm, and spoke the oath as if reciting a poem he found amusing. "I, Corvin of Blackmere, do swear." His scent told another story. Beneath the polished cedar and wine, it stank of sour anticipation. When he rose, he did not step back. "Before we continue, cousin," he said, voice carrying easily, "there is a matter the realm must address." Bernard's fingers twitched at his side. "This is not the time." "It is exactly the time." Corvin turned so the circle of watching wolves could see his face, his hands spread in a gesture of wounded concern. "We kneel tonight to renew our faith in your judgment. How can we when that judgment has been so clearly clouded?" A ripple went through the crowd. "Choose your words with care," Bernard warned. "I do." Corvin's gaze slid to me. "No one here questions that the moon marks mates as she wills, but even divine will can be twisted by those who seek power. For months, your enemies have murmured that you neglect the borders, that you turn away from counsel, that you spend nights not in the war room but in a certain woman's chambers." Heat pricked my cheeks, my scent spiked, sharp and indignant. Bernard's hand brushed my knuckles, a grounding touch. Corvin pounced on the flicker. "You see?" he cried, pivoting to the lords. She sways him with a thought. "Do you not feel it in the air? That unnatural pull?" There were nods, mutters. Of course they felt something. I was an Omega standing in the center of a circle of wolves under a full moon. The bond between Bernard and me thrummed like a plucked string. Corvin gestured, and 2 men stepped forward, each clutching a scroll. "I did not wish to believe such tales," the Duke said piously. "So I sought facts. Statements from those who have served our king closely these last months." He took the first scroll, unfurled it with a snap, and read in a voice dripping false sorrow. "Since the Omega arrived, His Majesty has dismissed morning drills, ignored reports, and flown into rages without cause. He drinks more, sleeps less, and speaks of the realm as a burden. Signed, Captain Jorik of the Eastern Watch." A murmur swelled. Bernard went very still. "That is a lie," he said flatly. "Is it?" Corvin lifted the second scroll. "I have seen His Majesty reject wise counsel when it contradicted his mate, even when the safety of our borders was at stake. Her scent clogs the very air of the council chamber. Men come out dazed, unsure of what they agreed to. Signed, Steward Harland." The murmur turned ugly. I searched for Harland's face in the crowd and found him standing near the back, skin waxy, eyes fixed on the floor. His scent reeked of fear. "Enough," Bernard snapped. "You parade forged words in my hall and call it concern? Forged?" Corvin's brows rose. "Are you saying your own officers lie? Or is it that they speak a truth you cannot bear?" He turned, including the ring of nobles, with a sweep of his arm. "We ask only for reassurance, cousin, that our king belongs first to the realm, not to a witch Omega who twists his wolf." A low growl rippled around the circle. Some faces were outraged on Bernard's behalf, others hungry for spectacle. The full moon glared down through the high windows, lending every emotion a sharp edge. "Say what you want," Bernard said, voice like iron. "Do not slander her for my choices." Corvin inclined his head with mock humility. "Very well, then prove your loyalty. Reject her, here before witnesses. If the bond is true, the moon will return her to you in time. If not, we are spared a dangerous mistake." My stomach lurched. The room tilted, torches smearing into streaks of light. For one breath, I felt Bernard's shock and fury slam into me through the bond, hot as forge fire. Then something else hesitation flickered, thin as a hair. Not because he doubted me. Because he knew the cost of defiance. Every eye watched him. Every wolf scented the trap. If he refused, Corvin would cry bewitched weakness. If he agreed, they would see him as a man who could cast aside a mate at political convenience. And somewhere, someone had poured bitter numbness into the wine casks again. The sharp almond tang teased my nose from the tables where goblets waited. If he drank now, if he faced a challenge dulled and off balance, the realm could lose more than a queen. The servant moved toward Bernard with a silver tray, cup gleaming. My wolf screamed. Without thinking, I caught his wrist. "Do not drink that," I said, louder than I intended. The hall went silent. Bernard's gaze snapped to mine. Through the bond, I felt the moment he smelled it too, the faint wrongness he would have overlooked before, now bright as lightning to us both. "Poison," he murmured. Corvin's smile did not falter. "You accuse us of treachery now, as well as of doubt?" "I accuse no one yet," Bernard said dangerously, "but my cup will remain untouched." The Duke spread his hands. "You see? He listens to her over ancient right and reason." Her scent coils round his thoughts. Enough. I stepped forward, out of Bernard's shadow and into the center of the circle. The gathered wolves rustled, taken aback. My heart pounded so hard it hurt, but my voice came clear. "You question my nature," I said. "You whisper that I am witch-born, that my scent is a spell. You wave papers and call them truth. Very well. Let us ask truth itself." Bernard's fingers brushed my sleeve, a wordless warning. I ignored it. "I am Omega," I said, lifting my chin. "By blood and scent and bond. By the old laws, that gives me a right in this hall." Some of the older lords stirred, frowning, sifting memory. Garen had taught me the words, muttering that I might never need them. I clung to them now like a lifeline. "I call upon the ancient right of scenting," I declared. "Let the lies be brought forth, and I will name them before the moon." Shock rippled through the room. Few living had seen the right invoked. Most had forgotten an Omega could do anything but warm beds and soothe tempers. Corvin recovered first. "Pretty theatrics," he sneered. "Do Do you mean to sniff at us until we kneel? If you are clean, you have nothing to fear, I said. I drew a breath, deep, slow, deliberate. Then I stopped fighting. I let my scent rise. It poured from me in a wave, hot and rich, sweeping through the hall like summer wind after a long winter. Wolves straightened as it hit them, eyes widening, breaths catching. Some took involuntary steps forward, others flinched back, overwhelmed. The bond between Bernard and me flared white-hot, a conduit rather than a chain. Through it, I felt his strength, his steadiness. In return, I gave him my focus, my refusal to cower. Bring me the scrolls, I said. Reluctantly, Corvin handed them over. The parchment crackled under my fingers. I held the first beneath my nose. Ink, wax, the faint sour tang of the captain's fear. And under that, a sharper scent. Sweat, wine, and the bitter aftertaste of coercion. He wrote this under duress, I said, voice carrying. Fear on his skin, not conviction. His hand shook. There was a murmur. Jorek, somewhere in the crowd, made a strangled sound. The second scroll reeked even more strongly. Harlan's scent twisted with guilt, and something stranger echoes of the same numb draft that had tainted Bernard's wine. This one, I said slowly, was not only afraid. He was fogged, drugged. His thoughts were not his own when he signed. Gasps. Harlan sank to his knees, hands over his face. Corvin's mask slipped for a heartbeat, resentment flashing before he smoothed it away. You expect us to trust your nose over written words? You have trusted my nose to find traitors in fields and alleys, Bernard said coldly. You will trust it here. But I was not finished. I turned, following the threads of scent through the hall. Fear, curiosity, lust, annoyance, a dozen emotions in a dozen keys. I sifted through them like Garen had taught me, searching for a particular note. The sour, brittle tang I had scented in the gardens the night of the attack. The smell of someone who believed their cause holy enough to kill for. There, my gaze landed on Corvin. On the surface, he smelled of expensive wine and polished wood. Beneath that, tightly leashed excitement and a faint whiff of the same numbing draft. Not on him, but in his clothes, his hair, the scent of someone who had lived close to the poison. I took a step toward him, then another. Your papers reek of your hands, I said quietly. Your men drink your wine, your servants carry your stories. I inhaled, letting his scent fill me until my wolf paced inside my chest, snarling. You are afraid, Cousin Corvin. His smile stiffened. Of a kitchen girl and a king gone soft? Afraid that all your whispered work will come to nothing. I went on, louder now. Afraid that each day Bernard keeps breathing, your chances of wearing his crown grow smaller. A hush fell so complete I could hear the torches spit. That is a serious accusation, Corvin said. You have no proof but your own vanity. No? I looked past him. At the men who had stood closest in the gardens. At the servants from Blackmere, whose scents matched the assassins. I saw realization dawning in their eyes, smelled doubt fraying loyalty. An Omega's nose is proof in the old laws, one of the oldest lords said slowly. We swore to it. Once. We did, another murmured. I remember. Bernard stepped up beside me, his presence a wall at my back. Enough games, he said to Corvin. You have called my rule into question with forged testimony and poison. You have sought to make my mate a scapegoat for your ambition. You dare, tonight of all nights, to demand I cast her aside. His wolf rode his voice, roughening it. I will answer you, but not with rejection. He took my hand and raised it, palm outward so all could see, so all could scent the bond sparking between us. This is Helena, he said. My chosen and my fated. Any who would challenge my loyalty to this realm may do so openly against both of us. The circle stirred, some with approval, some with unease. Corvin's eyes burned. You make a mistake, he said softly. When you fall, cousin, they will say I warned you. Perhaps, Bernard replied, but I will not fall alone. Our scents twined in the charged air, his storm and steel, my earth and bread spreading through the hall like a new oath. For the first time, I did not flinch from it. Let them smell exactly what we were, and let our enemies choke on it. Blood and vows. Corvin did not slink away after the conclave. Cornered wolves rarely do. Very well, he said, voice cool as river ice. If you will not listen to reason, we shall let the moon decide which of us is fit to wear the crown. A murmur rose, sharp and eager. Ritual challenge. Blood right. The oldest law of all. Bernard's jaw tightened. You would risk the realm on your ambition? I would save it from your weakness, Corvin replied. Choose. Yield the throne, or meet me fang to fang. There was never a choice. Bernard stepped into the center of the circle, shoulders square. Name the terms. Moon above, witnesses around, no weapons but what we are. Corvin shrugged off his cloak, eyes bright. Winner lives. Loser is offered to the earth. And no one touches her, Bernard said, jerking his chin toward me. Whatever the outcome. Corvin's gaze slid over me, dismissive. If you die, cousin, her fate will take care of itself. The hall emptied into the courtyard like water from a broken cask. Torches flared along the walls, their flames dwarfed by the white coin of the moon overhead. The fighting circle was marked in chalk on packed earth, already scuffed by too many old ghosts. I stood at its edge, Garen to my left, Elara to my right. My heart hammered so hard the sound seemed to fill my skull. You do not have to watch, Garen murmured. Yes, I do, I said. If he falls, I will feel it whether I look or not. I would rather see. Bernard stepped into the circle. Corvin followed, rolling his shoulders, lips peeled back in anticipation. The murmurs of the crowd fell away, until only the thud of my own pulse remained. Shift, intoned the herald. Flesh tore, bones cracked, the world narrowed to the sound of two bodies breaking and remaking themselves. Fur burst from skin, snarls ripped the air. When it was done, two great wolves stood nose to nose. Bernard massive and dark as storm clouds, Corvin leaner, silver gray with eyes like chips of obsidian. They circled once. Then they crashed together. The impact shook the ground, teeth flashed white, claws gouged earth. Bernard went low, driving his shoulder into Corvin's ribs. Corvin twisted like smoke, raking Bernard's flank. Blood sprayed, hot and bright. Pain lanced through me. I staggered, hand flying to my side. Garen's grip closed on my elbow. Easy. You are feeling echoes only. Echoes or not, each blow reverberated through the bond like a struck bell. When Bernard leapt, my breath caught. When he hit the ground, my knees buckled. Breathe, Elara hissed. He needs your steadiness, not your panic. She was right. I dragged air into my lungs, forced my wolf to stop clawing at my ribs. Calm, I told myself. Hearth, not wildfire. My scent obeyed. It rose, not in a frantic spike, but in a slow, rolling wave. Warm, steady, anchoring. The wolves closest to me straightened, jaws unclenching. I felt Bernard latch onto that thread through the bond, felt his focus sharpen. He feinted left. Corvin took the bait, lunging for the exposed shoulder. Bernard pivoted, teeth snapping shut on his cousin's foreleg. Bone crunched. Corvin yelped, half snarl, half scream. Witch, Corvin spat, stumbling back, shifting just enough that his voice emerged mangled but understandable. Blood matted his fur, his gaze flicked to me, wild. Do you not feel it? He shouted to the circle. She pours herself into him. She twists the fight. This is no honest challenge, it is sorcery. Faces turned, hungry for accusation. Some eyes held doubt, others glimmered with the desire to believe anything that made their fear simple. If I flinched now, if I shrank, his words would root. So I stepped forward until my boots touched the chalk line. I am doing nothing you could not ask your own mates to do, I said, voice clear. I breathe. I stand. I will him to live. If that is witchcraft, then every Omega who ever watched her wolf fight is a witch. I drew in another breath and let my scent surge. Not to seduce, to steady. I thought of the border keep, of stone floors and ash-streaked arms, of the night an assassin's teeth nearly found my throat, of Bernard's hand closing around mine in a crowded hall, not as a chain but as a question. I thought of choosing to answer. All of it rolled into the air. Fear-faced, pain endured, the hard, bright thread of decision that had brought me here. Wolves around the circle inhaled and went still, not dazzled but grounded, as if someone had laid a firm hand on the back of their necks and reminded them who they were. Look at him, I said, pointing to Bernard as he shook blood from his muzzle and lowered his head again. He bleeds as any of you would. He fights as he always has, fang, claw, bone. The only magic here is the bond the moon gave us. And if you fear that, you fear your own. A silence followed my words, deep and shifting. When I glanced at the faces ringing the circle, I saw less hunger for spectacle and more grim attention. Corvin saw it too. Desperation sharpened his scent. He lunged, heedless now, going for Bernard's throat while the crowd's focus wavered. Bernard met him head-on. They tumbled, a knot of fur and fury, rolling so close to the chalk that dust puffed in my face. Now, I whispered, not as command but as fierce hope. Through the bond, I felt Bernard's muscles bunch, felt his teeth close. He tore Corvin's throat out in a single brutal wrench. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Blood sprayed the circle, dark against pale dirt. Corvin's body twitched once, then stilled, eyes staring at nothing. Bernard stood over him, chest heaving, fur dripping crimson. The air reeked of iron and the sharp, clean scent of finality. Then the wolves around us dropped to one knee, as if pulled by a single cord. "Hail the king," someone said hoarsely. "Hail," others echoed, some willingly, some because there was no breath left for dissent. The sound rolled around the courtyard, ragged but real. Bernard's gaze found mine. He padded to the circle's edge, muzzle still stained, and lowered himself, bones cracking, limbs reshaping until he knelt in the dirt as a man. Blood streaked his skin where fur had been moments before. He was all sharp lines and fresh scars, raw and terrible and beautiful. I stepped over the chalk. Garen sucked in a breath. "Helena, hush," Alara murmured. "This is theirs." Bernard sank to one knee before me, head bowed. "Helena of the Border Keep," he said, voice roughened by the shift and the fight. "The moon marked you for me. Tonight, before my court and my gods, I ask if you will also choose me." My throat closed. This was not the claiming grip in a frightened hall, not a bond forced by scent and proximity. This was a man kneeling in blood, offering me the sharp-edged truth of who he was. "I already have," I said softly. "Every day I stayed. Every time I stood beside you when it would have been easier to run." My hands trembled as I cupped his jaw, fingers slicking into blood. "But if you want words, then hear them." "Yes, Bernard. I choose you." Somewhere, a priest gasped at the reversal. The king kneeling, the Omega standing. "Let him." I bent and pressed my mouth to the place where his neck met his shoulder. My teeth broke skin. His breath hissed between his teeth. His hands clamped around my hips, not to drag me closer or push me away, but to hold himself in place as the bond roared anew, no longer solely his mark on me, but mine on him. Blood touched my tongue, hot and salt and wolf. It seared down my throat like a vow. When I straightened, our scents were so entwined there was no telling where his ended and mine began. He rose slowly, eyes blazing, and for once the weight of all those watching did not feel like a threat. It felt like witness. Epilogue. No more hiding. Months later, the fortress smelled different. Not without blood or fear. No realm ever is, but threaded through it now was something else. Change. Laws were hammered out in long councils, Garen's sharp voice tangling with Alara's cool logic and Bernard's gravel judgment. The new edicts were dry words on parchment, but I scented their echoes in the corridors. Omegas could not be sold without consent. Their testimony in matters of scent and truth held weight equal to a lord's. An assault on a bondmate became treason, not inconvenience. There were grumbles, of course. Some old wolves sulked like beaten dogs. A few left for other lands. Yet more stayed, adapting, because the world does not halt for wounded pride. I walked the great hall one evening, skirts brushing the clean-swept flagstones where I had once scrubbed on my knees. No bucket weighed down my arms now. A crown, light but unyielding, rested on my hair, its iron band warmed by the heat of my skin. Bernard stood at the far end, speaking with ambassadors from a distant pack. His eyes flicked up as I entered, the bond humming a quiet welcome. My scent drifted ahead of me, unmasked, untamed. Hearth and storm, and something uniquely ours. Two young Omegas waited by the pillar, fingers twisted in their sleeves, eyes wide. They had come with their families to petition for protection, frightened of heats that had just begun. "Your Majesty," one whispered as I approached. "Is it true you were once like us?" "Afraid of my own scent?" I asked, certain it would ruin my life. I smiled. "Yes, very much like you, and now you are." The girl faltered, glancing at my crown, my rings, the guards who bowed as they passed. "Now I remember that power hidden rots in the dark," I said gently. "Power claimed can change a realm." I took each of their hands in turn, letting them feel the steady thrum of the bond beneath my skin. "Your scent is not a curse, it is a voice. Learn when to whisper and when to shout." They laughed, shaky but real. Later, when the hall had emptied and the torches burned low, Bernard and I walked the battlements together. The night wind wrapped our mingled scents around us like a cloak. Below, the The kingdom sprawled in shadow and starlight, wounded but mending. I used to dream of being invisible, I said. And now? He asked. Now I want every predator who ever hunted an Omega to walk into a city that smells of us and know they will find no easy prey here. He huffed a quiet laugh, sliding his arm around my waist. Ambitious. Necessary, I corrected. I rested my head against his shoulder, breathing in the life we had built from blood and choice. I had spent my life trying to hide my scent. Now it was the banner under which we ruled. If you made it this far with Helena and Bernard, thank you for walking beside us. Tell me, where are you reading from, and which moment in their story gripped you the most?